The air shimmered, thick with ancient magic and foreboding. Alpha King Kaelen, lord of the Lycanthian dominion, had shattered centuries of tradition. His chosen mate was not a fierce she-wolf of pure blood, but Elara, a fragile human. Whispers of outrage turned to growls of defiance across the realm. How could a king, bound by sacred laws, tether his soul to one so ordinary? The decision ignited a firestorm, threatening to unravel the very fabric of their society. Now the venerable Pack Council, guardians of their primal ways, has summoned them both. Kaelen must defend his unthinkable claim against the judgment of his entire world. The scent of drying herbs and old parchment clung to Elara like a second skin, a comforting aroma in the small, unassuming apothecary. Her fingers, nimble and accustomed to the delicate work, sorted through dried moon petal, its silvery sheen catching the faint afternoon light filtering through the stained glass window of the Whispering Willow. Oakhaven, the border town where she had spent all 22 years of her life, was a place of quiet rhythms. Its cobbled streets, always damp from the nearby river, hummed with the murmur of human life. Yet an invisible barrier, thick and ancient, separated it from the shadowed primordial forests that stretched northward. Beyond those trees lay the Lycanthian dominion, a realm whispered about in hushed tones, its inhabitants rarely seen, yet their presence a constant, potent awareness. Elara was a creature of routine, her days filled with grinding potions, mending torn books at the local library, and dreaming of worlds beyond Oakhaven's familiar confines. She possessed an innate curiosity, a sharp mind that devoured knowledge, and a quiet compassion that endeared her to the few customers who sought out the Willow's remedies. Her plain, practical dresses and unbound auburn hair did little to draw attention, a state of being she preferred. She often felt a peculiar restlessness, a longing for something she couldn't name, a faint echo of wilderness in her soul that Oakhaven's polite society couldn't satisfy. The howls that occasionally drifted from the distant woods on moonlit nights were not frightening to her, but instead stirred a strange primal sense of wonder. The werewolf world, for all its terrifying mystique, was built upon a hierarchy as old as the mountains themselves. At its apex sat the Alpha King, a figure of immense power chosen by bloodline and strength, revered as both protector and judge. Beneath him, the council elders, guardians of ancient laws and traditions, held significant sway. Noble bloodlines, fierce and proud, formed the core of the pack, their pure lineage a source of both power and expectation. Mates were sacred, chosen not by whim but by destiny, a potent supernatural pull recognized by scent, and an undeniable spiritual bond. To choose outside one's species, especially a human, was not just unconventional. It was a violation of every sacred tenet, a challenge to the very essence of their existence. It was an act that could unravel centuries of stability. King Kaelen, the current Alpha King, was a legend in his own right. His reign had been marked by unwavering strength, tactical brilliance, and a deep respect for the old ways. He was a pillar of their society, his presence alone commanding silence, his decisions rarely questioned. Yet even Kaelen was bound by the sacred laws, particularly those governing succession and mating rights, which decreed that the Luna, the Alpha's queen, must be a she-wolf of formidable power and pure Lycanthian blood. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a particularly slow one at the apothecary, when the threshold of the Whispering Willow was crossed by a presence that seemed to absorb all sound, all light, all air. A tall figure, cloaked in shadowed wool, stood just inside, the scent of pine forests, rich earth, and something undeniably wild preceding him. He moved with an effortless grace that spoke of coiled strength, his dark eyes sweeping over the shelves, then settling on Elara. Time seemed to warp, stretching thin. A profound, almost painful warmth blossomed in Elara's chest, a sensation foreign yet terrifyingly familiar. Her breath caught. Kaelen, in his human guise, felt the world shift on its axis. The air, usually filled with the mundane scents of the human town, suddenly sang with the unique, intoxicating aroma of wild jasmine and rain-soaked earth, woven with something ancient and deep. His mate. He had searched for centuries, his soul yearning for the missing piece, never imagining it would be found in such a place, in such a form. The pull was instantaneous, overwhelming, an ancient magic roaring to life within him. This slight, unassuming human woman, with her wide, curious eyes and the faint smudge of ink on her cheek, was his Luna, his fated one. His declaration, spoken quietly but carrying the weight of centuries, ripped through the fabric of Lycanthian society like a lightning bolt. "She is my mate." The words, relayed by the handful of guards who had accompanied him, spread like wildfire, igniting disbelief, then outrage, then fury among the pure-blood werewolves. A human? A king, bound by sacred oath to his pack, to choose a human? It was an insult, a betrayal. Nowhere was the outrage more potent than in the opulent chambers of Lady Seraphina. With hair like spun obsidian and eyes the color of emeralds, Seraphina had been groomed since birth to be the Luna. Her noble bloodline stretched back to the founding of the Dominion, her power undeniable, her ambition a sharp, honed edge. She had envisioned herself at Kaelen's side, ruling. The news hit her like a physical blow, humiliation burning through her veins. "A mere human," she hissed, her elegant claws extending minutely. "This cannot stand, it will not stand." Elara, thrust into a world she never knew existed, found herself trapped in a golden cage of destiny. The Alpha King's pronouncement had shattered her quiet life, replacing it with terror and confusion. She was no queen, no warrior. She was a simple apothecary assistant, and suddenly the most powerful being in the land had laid claim to her. She felt the prickle of invisible eyes, the palpable tension radiating from the Lycanthian forests, a silent chorus of rejection. The very air around her seemed to vibrate with animosity. The pure-blood families, their ancient lineage threatened by this unprecedented choice, began to voice their dissent. Whispers of destabilization and a fracturing pack spread, fueled by Seraphina's subtle manipulations. The scent of fear mingled with the sharp tang of anger in the pack's communal awareness, an undercurrent that even Kaelen struggled to contain. He felt the pull of his mate, the warmth of their nascent bond, but also the icy grip of his duty, the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down. He was Alpha, but even an Alpha King could not ignore the collective will of his people, especially when championed by the highest authority, the Pack Council. The howls grew louder at night, no longer mournful but laced with an undeniable challenge, echoing off the ancient stone spires of Lycanthian Keep. The moonlight, once a symbol of peace, now seemed to illuminate the rising storm. And then the formal summons arrived, etched on parchment scented with elder magic and sealed with the crest of the Alpha Council. It decreed that Alpha King Kaelen and his intended mate Elara appear before the Pack Council during the next full moon, there to defend this unthinkable union. The judgment of the entire Dominion awaited. Elara, trembling, knew she was a pawn in a game she didn't understand, while Kaelen, his face a mask of grim resolve, knew he faced the greatest battle of his reign, not with claws and fangs, but with tradition and prejudice. The cage, for both of them, had just tightened. The journey to Silvercrest Citadel was a blur of fear and awe for Elara. Kaelen had insisted she travel by his side, mounted on a magnificent black horse that seemed to glide through the ancient pine forests. The world outside Oakhaven was raw and untamed, the air thick with the scent of damp earth, wild jasmine, and something else, something primal and deeply unsettling. As the moon rose, a chorus of howls echoed through the valleys, sending shivers down her spine. Each mournful cry reminded her of the chasm between her human world and Kaelen's. He spoke in low, reassuring tones, explaining the Pack's territories, their ancient traditions, the significance of the full moon that now hung like a colossal pearl in the velvet sky. Yet his words could not quell the terror that gnawed at her. The citadel itself was a marvel, an immense fortress carved directly into the heart of a towering mountain, its battlements piercing the clouds. Torches flickered in its windows, and the main gate, a massive slab of iron-bound oak, groaned open to admit them. Elara felt utterly minuscule, a fragile bird caught in a storm. The sheer scale, the scent of hundreds of powerful werewolves, the ancient stones humming with untold magic. It was overwhelming. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking threat. Every glance from a passing guard felt like a judgment. She was an outsider, a trespasser in a world of predators, utterly out of place. They were led into the Great Hall, a cavernous chamber where moonlight poured through a colossal crystal skylight, bathing the assembly in an ethereal silver glow. Hundreds of werewolves filled the space, a sea of stoic faces and sharp, assessing eyes. Warriors in finely crafted leather, nobles in rich velvets, and the grim-faced elders. Their collective presence created a palpable pressure, a supernatural weight that pressed down on Elara, making it hard to breathe. At the far end, on a raised dais, sat the pack council of 7 elders, their expressions stern and unyielding. Their thrones, carved from dark, polished wood, seemed to loom over the entire gathering. Elara's eyes were drawn to a striking figure seated prominently among the noble families near the dais, Lady Seraphina. Her crimson gown shimmered in the silver light, her posture regal, her gaze fixed on Elara with an undisguised, venomous hostility. The atmosphere was thick with tension, palpable animosity directed solely at her. Elder Theron, the oldest and most imposing of the council members, rose. His voice, deep and resonant, boomed through the hall. "We are gathered tonight under the full moon to address an unprecedented matter of grave importance to the Lycanthian Dominion." He leveled his gaze at Elara, making her flinch. "Alpha King Kaelen has claimed a human as his mate, an act in direct violation of the sacred pureblood laws, endangering the stability of our pack and dishonoring centuries of tradition." He then turned to Seraphina. "Lady Seraphina, you may present your testimony." Seraphina rose with an air of wounded grace, her voice trembling slightly, yet carrying across the hall. "My lords, my pack, I stand before you tonight not for myself, but for the future of our kind." She dabbed delicately at her eyes. "For generations, my family, the noble house of Valerius has provided Lunas to our great alphas. It was my destiny, my birthright, to stand by our king, to have that honor stripped away, not for another of pure blood, but for a mortal, a creature so fragile and incapable, is a humiliation I bear for my entire lineage." Her words, carefully crafted, resonated with many. She spoke of her dedication, her training, her pure blood, her worthiness, contrasting it sharply with Elara's inherent weakness. Whispers rippled through the hall, growls of agreement from the pure blood factions. "Human! Speak!" Elder Theron commanded, his voice sharp. Elara felt every eye, every predatory stare pierce through her. She was a lamb brought before wolves. "What claim do you have to stand before our Alpha King? What strength do you possess? Can you shift? Can you lead? Can you defend this pack against its enemies?" The questions came fast, cruel, designed to expose her frailty. She stammered, unable to form words, her throat tight with fear. Comparisons to Seraphina's strength, beauty, and noble blood were thrown at her like stones. Self-doubt, cold and sharp, pierced her heart. Maybe they were right. Maybe she truly was just a weak, insignificant human, unworthy of such a powerful being, unworthy of this world. Before she could fully crumble, Kaelen moved. His power, raw and untamed, flared, silencing the hall with a single, furious growl. He rose from his position beside her, his towering form radiating authority, his eyes glowing with an incandescent gold. "Enough!" His voice, though not a shout, vibrated with barely contained fury. "The mate bond is not chosen, it is bestowed. It is the will of the moon goddess herself. I did not choose Elara. The moon goddess chose her for me." He turned to face the council, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. "She is my mate, the other half of my soul. Deny this bond and you deny the goddess who willed it into being. Deny this bond and you deny me." His raw display of power made even the elders shift uneasily, but the undercurrent of defiance remained. Then an unexpected voice cut through the tense silence. "And what if the Alpha King is compromised, blinded by a bond that threatens the very foundation of our species?" Marcus, Kaelen's beta, stepped forward from the shadows, his face a mask of false concern. Elara's breath hitched. Betrayal. His judgment clouded, his loyalty divided between a mere mortal and the millennia-old traditions of our pack. A king must put his people first, not his own desires, however destined they may seem. Marcus turned to the council. "I say, if the Alpha King cannot place the pack above this aberration, then perhaps he is no longer fit to lead. Or perhaps he should be forced to reject this bond for the good of all Lycanthians." A gasp rippled through the hall, followed by murmurs of agreement from the pure blood faction. Seraphina's lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. It was clear now. She had orchestrated this, reaching even into Kaelen's inner circle. As the betrayal sunk in, a strange warmth bloomed in Elara's chest, spreading rapidly through her limbs. It wasn't a comforting warmth, but an intense, almost painful heat, accompanied by a sudden surge of something ancient and powerful. For a fleeting instant, her eyes, usually a soft hazel, flashed with a brilliant, untamed gold. Only a few, the most ancient of the elders and Kaelen, noticed the subtle shift, a spark of something extraordinary in her. Elara herself felt only confusion, a primal energy stirring within her, foreign yet strangely familiar. Elder Theron slammed his fist on the armrest of his throne, the sound echoing ominously. "Silence, the council has heard enough. We will not deny the moon goddess, nor will we allow our king to be swayed by a bond that threatens to unravel our society. The bond will be tested." His gaze landed on Elara, cold and piercing. Elara, the human, will undergo 3 trials of worth. If she proves herself worthy, if she can embody the strength, wisdom, and heart required of a Luna, then and only then will the council recognize this union. He continued, "The trial of strength, the trial of wisdom, and the trial of heart. Should she fail even one, the bond will be deemed illegitimate, and the Alpha King must reject it or face dire consequences." He then delivered the cruelest blow. During these trials, Alpha King Kaelen is forbidden from offering any direct assistance to Elara. She must face these challenges alone. He paused, then added with a chilling smile, "To ensure fairness, Lady Seraphina will act as the council's observer, documenting Elara's every move." The implications were clear. Seraphina would sabotage her at every turn. Elara was to be given quarters within the citadel, but it was nothing more than a gilded cage. Whispers of assassination attempts, of accidents if she failed, floated through the hall, chilling her to the bone. Kaelen's face was a mask of anguish, his golden eyes burning with a desperate, helpless fury. He could not protect her from this. Before she was led away, Kaelen managed a stolen moment, his hand finding hers, his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her. "You are stronger than you know, Elara," he whispered, his eyes pleading. Her voice was a mere whisper. "I'm just human. How can I compete with her? How can I face this?" His thumb traced the back of her hand, a silent promise. "The bond chose you for a reason, my mate. Trust in that." But there was no time for comfort. Guards, stern-faced and unyielding, separated them, escorting her to a cold stone chamber high in a tower. The door clanged shut, plunging her into darkness. Alone in the vast ancient citadel, Elara pressed her back against the cold stone, heart hammering, facing impossible odds. Tomorrow, the first trial would begin at dawn. The dawn broke cold and merciless over the Lycanthian citadel, painting the ancient stone walls in shades of blood and amber. Elara stood at the narrow window of her assigned chamber, a gilded cage with velvet curtains and iron locks, watching the pack members gather in the training grounds below. Their voices carried on the wind, sharp with anticipation and cruelty. "The human won't last 5 minutes. I heard Lady Seraphina requested the strongest warriors for the trial." Foolish girl. She should have run when she had the chance. Elara's hands trembled against the cold stone sill. 3 days had passed since the council's decree, 3 days of isolation broken only by silent servants who left food she couldn't eat and avoided her eyes. The mate bond thrummed beneath her skin, a constant ache that told her Kaelen was near but forbidden from reaching her. The council had been explicit. Any interference from the Alpha King would result in immediate failure. She was alone. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. The door opened before she could respond, and an elderly man entered with the fluid grace of a predator. His hair fell like silver moonlight past his shoulders, and his eyes, ancient amber that had witnessed centuries, fixed upon her with unsettling intensity. "You are afraid," he observed, his voice like gravel smoothed by time. "Good. Fear sharpens the senses. Who are you?" Elara stepped back instinctively. "My name is Theron. I am the eldest of the council. Though my brothers and sisters often forget, I still draw breath." A wry smile touched his weathered face. "I saw what they did not during your judgment, child. Your eyes, they flashed gold for the briefest moment when your terror peaked." Elara's breath caught. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" Theron moved closer, and she caught his scent, ancient pine and winter frost. "Tell me, have you noticed changes these past days? Sounds too sharp, scents too vivid, a restlessness in your bones when the moon rises?" She wanted to deny it, but the truth lodged in her throat. The servant's heart beat 3 rooms away, the smell of silver being sharpened in the armory below, the inexplicable urge to run, to hunt, to howl at the moon that called to something deep within her marrow. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Theron's expression softened with something like wonder. You are awakening, child. The mate bond with an Alpha King is powerful. It can unlock what has been dormant for generations. I suspect your bloodline is not as human as you believed. That's impossible. My parents were human, yes, but bloodlines run deep and strange in this world. Sometimes the old magic skips generations, hiding in human form until the right catalyst awakens it. He gestured toward the window. In 2 hours, you will face 3 of our finest warriors in combat. They will show you no mercy. Lady Seraphina has ensured that. Despair crashed over her. Then I'm going to die, perhaps. Or perhaps you will finally stop fighting what you're becoming and let it rise. Theron extended his hand, and she saw the ancient scars that marked his palm, ritual marks from ceremonies long forgotten. I offer you training, Elara of Oakhaven, not in swords or strategy, but in accessing the power that sleeps within you. 2 hours is not much time, but for one who is awakening, it may be enough. She stared at his outstretched hand, this lifeline offered by a stranger who should be her enemy. Every instinct screamed that she could trust him, though she couldn't explain why. Why would you help me? Because I am old enough to remember the prophecies, child, and I have waited 3 centuries to see if they would come true. His amber eyes gleamed. Now choose quickly. Dawn waits for no one. Elara placed her trembling hand in his. Theron led her through hidden passages deep beneath the citadel, down stairs carved from living rock that predated the current structure. The air grew thick with the scent of earth and ancient magic. Torches flickered in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. They emerged into a circular chamber where moonstone veins ran through the walls like frozen lightning. A pool of dark water sat at the center, its surface mirror-still despite the absence of any container to hold it. This is the heart chamber, Theron explained, where our ancestors performed the first transformations, where human and wolf became one. The magic here is old and wild. It will answer to your blood if your blood carries the gift. I don't understand any of this. Elara's voice echoed strangely in the space. You don't need to understand, you need to feel. Theron moved to the pool's edge. Close your eyes. Tell me what you sense. She obeyed, and immediately the world exploded into sensation. The drip of water somewhere in the darkness, each drop distinct as thunder. The scratch of claws on stone far above where rats nested. The pulse of Theron's heartbeat, slow and steady as a drum. And beneath it all, a thrumming power that emanated from the pool itself, calling to something within her chest. I feel everything, she breathed. Good. Now reach deeper, past the human senses, past the fear. Find the place where the wildness lives. Elara sank into herself, past the terror of the coming trial, past the ache of the mate bond, past the girl who had ground herbs in a quiet shop. There, a spark of gold in the darkness of her mind. When she touched it, power surged through her veins like liquid fire. Her eyes snapped open and Theron smiled. There you are, he murmured. Now hold on to that feeling. When you face the warriors, when pain and fear threaten to overwhelm you, return to this place. Let the wildness rise. It will not make you invincible, but it will give you a chance. They trained in that chamber until the sun climbed high, Theron teaching her to call upon the power in controlled bursts. Her body moved faster than it ever had, her strikes carrying supernatural strength. It wasn't enough to match a full werewolf, but it was more than any human should possess. When the bells tolled noon, Theron placed both hands on her shoulders. Remember, child, you are more than they believe, more than you believe. Trust in what you're becoming. The arena was a nightmare of noise and hostility. Hundreds of pack members filled the stone tiers, their voices a cacophony of jeers and bloodthirsty anticipation. Silver banners bearing the Lycanthian crest snapped in the wind. The council sat in their elevated box, faces impassive as carved stone. Lady Seraphina stood beside them, resplendent in crimson silk, her smile sharp as broken glass. Elara entered through the iron gate, and the crowd's roar intensified. She wore simple leather armor that offered little protection, her only weapon a wooden staff. Across the sand, 3 warriors emerged, massive men with eyes that gleamed wolf gold and muscles that spoke of supernatural strength. The largest stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Nothing personal, human. Orders are orders. The trial begins, the head elder's voice boomed. 3 warriors against 1. The human must remain standing for 10 minutes or incapacitate all 3 opponents. Begin. They came at her like a storm. The first warrior's fist whistled toward her face. Elara moved on instinct, the training from the heart chamber guiding her body. She ducked under the blow and drove her staff into his knee. He grunted but barely staggered. The second warrior grabbed her from behind, arms like iron bands crushing her ribs. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Find the wildness. Elara closed her eyes and reached for that golden spark. Power flooded her limbs. She threw her head back, connecting with the warrior's nose with a crack that echoed across the arena. His grip loosened, and she twisted free, bringing her staff around in an arc that caught the third warrior across the temple. The crowd's jeers turned to surprised murmurs, but the warriors recovered quickly, circling her with predatory focus. Blood dripped from the second warrior's broken nose, and his eyes had gone full wolf. No longer human, no longer holding back. "You'll pay for that, bitch," he snarled. They attacked in unison, a coordinated assault meant to overwhelm. Elara fought with everything Theron had taught her, staff whirling, body moving in ways that defied human limitation. She landed blows that should have felled normal men, but these were werewolves, their supernatural healing already closing wounds. A fist caught her ribs, and she heard something crack. Pain exploded through her chest. Another blow to her shoulder sent her staff flying. She hit the sand hard, tasting copper and defeat. The largest warrior loomed over her, raising his boot to crush her skull. In the council box, Seraphina leaned forward, triumph gleaming in her eyes. And in that moment, as death descended, Elara felt the mate bond flare like a supernova. Kaelen's anguish crashed through her, his rage, his helplessness, his absolute faith in her. The bond sang with a single truth: "You are mine, and you are magnificent." Something inside her shattered. Golden light erupted from Elara's body, so bright the crowd cried out and shielded their eyes. Power, ancient and wild and utterly inhuman, surged through every cell. Her eyes blazed like twin suns. When she moved, it was with speed that blurred the air. She caught the warrior's descending boot with one hand and twisted. He flew across the arena, crashing into the stone wall with force that cracked the ancient blocks. The second warrior lunged, but she was already moving, her fist connecting with his jaw and sending him sprawling unconscious into the sand. The third warrior backed away, fear replacing aggression. "What are you?" Elara didn't know. She only knew the wildness had fully awakened, and it was glorious. She advanced on him, and he dropped to one knee in submission, an instinctive response to a power greater than his own. Silence fell over the arena like snow. Elara stood in the center of the sand, chest heaving, golden light slowly fading from her eyes. 3 warriors lay defeated around her, one unconscious, one submitting, one groaning against the wall. The head elder rose slowly. "The trial is past." The crowd erupted, but Elara barely heard them. Her eyes found Kaelen in the royal box, and the pride and wonder in his face made her knees weak. Beside him, Seraphina's expression had gone pale with fury and something else, fear. Theron caught Elara's gaze from the council box and nodded once, a smile playing at his ancient lips. As guards escorted her from the arena, the whispers began. "Did you see her eyes? That power. It was like the old bloodlines. Maybe the prophecy is true after all." In her chamber that night, as a young she-wolf healer named Lyra tended her wounds with gentle hands and kind eyes, Elara finally allowed herself to feel the magnitude of what had happened. She had won. But more than that, she had awakened something that could never be put back to sleep. And somewhere in the citadel, her enemies were already plotting their next move. The citadel transformed in the days following Elara's impossible victory. Where once pack members had regarded her with open contempt, now they watched with wary curiosity, and in some cases, fear. Whispers followed her through the ancient corridors like shadows, speculation about her bloodline spreading faster than wildfire through dry timber. "I heard her grandmother was a witch from the northern covens." "No, she's descended from the Moon-Blessed, the original werewolf lines. Whatever she is, she's dangerous. The old powers always are." Elara found the attention more suffocating than the previous hostility. She spent her limited freedom in the citadel's vast library, a cathedral of knowledge where leather-bound tomes climbed toward vaulted ceilings, and the scent of aged parchment mingled with beeswax candles. Here, at least, she could breathe. Lyra had become her constant companion, the young Omega she-wolf possessing an encyclopedic knowledge of pack history and a refreshing disregard for social hierarchy. She sat across from Elara now, her copper hair catching the firelight as she pored over a genealogy text. "There are gaps," Lyra murmured, tracing faded ink with one finger. "Entire family lines that simply disappear from the records around 200 years ago, see? The Silvermoon clan, the Night Whisper family, the Goldeneye pack, all gone within a single generation. What happened to them?" Elara leaned closer, studying the deliberate scratches where names had been scraped away. "The official history claims they were wiped out during the Purge Wars, when the Pureblood faction consolidated power." Lyra's amber eyes met hers meaningfully. "But Theron once told me the truth is more complicated. Some lines weren't destroyed. They were hidden, sent into the human world to protect them from persecution." The implication hung heavy between them. Before Elara could respond, Theron himself materialized from between the towering shelves, moving with that unnatural silence that marked the truly ancient. "Still searching for answers in dusty books, I see." His weathered face creased with approval. "Good. The second trial will require more than strength. It will demand wisdom, cunning, and the ability to see what others wish to keep hidden." Elara straightened. "When?" "Tomorrow night. The full moon rises, and with it, the trial of wisdom." Theron settled into a chair that groaned under his weight despite his lean frame. "The Council has designed a challenge specifically to exploit your human limitations. You will be taken into the Whispering Woods and given a single task: find the heart of the forest before dawn." "That doesn't sound so difficult," Elara said carefully. "The Whispering Woods span 300 square miles of primordial forest where reality grows thin and the old magic runs wild. Paths shift, time moves strangely, and the trees themselves are said to be sentient, judging those who walk beneath their boughs." Theron's expression darkened. "Many werewolves have entered those woods and never returned. For a human, even one awakening to power, it should be impossible." "Should be," Lyra interjected. "But you're not entirely human anymore, are you? I can smell it. Your scent has changed. Less like prey, more like—" She struggled for words. "Like something the forest might recognize as kin." Theron nodded. "The Whispering Woods remember the old bloodlines. If your heritage is what I suspect, the forest may guide rather than hinder you. But there's another complication." He leaned forward, voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Lady Seraphina has been granted permission to enter the woods as your escort, officially to ensure you don't cheat. In reality, to make sure I never come out," Elara finished grimly. "Precisely. And she won't be alone. I've heard whispers of a hunting party, wolves loyal to the Pureblood faction who see you as an existential threat to their way of life." Theron's ancient eyes burned with intensity. "You must understand, child. Your very existence challenges centuries of carefully maintained power structures. If you succeed in these trials, if you take your place as Lunar Queen, everything changes." The weight of it pressed down on Elara's shoulders. She thought of her simple life in Oakhaven, grinding herbs and dreaming small dreams. That girl seemed like a stranger now, someone who had existed in another lifetime. "How do I find this heart of the forest?" she asked. "That I cannot tell you. The trial must be yours alone." Theron rose, preparing to leave. "But I will say this. The forest does not respond to strength or dominance. It responds to truth. Be honest in your intentions, and it may show you the way." After he departed, Lyra reached across the table and squeezed Elara's hand. "You won't be completely alone. I can't enter the woods with you. The Council would never allow it. But I'll be waiting at the forest's edge. If you need help, if something goes wrong." She pressed a small silver whistle into Elara's palm. "Blow this and I'll hear it. I may be Omega, but I'm still faster than most of the pack." Tears pricked Elara's eyes at this gesture of loyalty from someone who had every reason to resent her. "Thank you. Thank me by surviving." Lyra's smile was fierce. "I've waited my whole life to see someone shake up this stagnant hierarchy. Don't you dare die in those woods." That night, Elara's dreams were vivid and strange. She ran through moonlit forests on 4 legs, her paws silent on the moss-covered earth. Ancient trees bent to whisper secrets in a language she almost understood. A golden wolf with eyes like molten sun watched from the shadows, and she knew with dream certainty that this was her true form, the self she had not yet fully become. She woke to find Kaelen sitting beside her bed, his presence having bypassed every lock and guard through sheer alpha authority. In the silver moonlight streaming through her window, he looked almost otherworldly, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, though her heart sang at his nearness. "I know." His hand found hers, the mate bond flaring at the contact. "But I couldn't stay away. Not tonight. When tomorrow you'll walk into danger I cannot shield you from." "The Council! Damn the Council!" The words came out as a growl, his eyes flashing wolf gold. "Do you know what it does to me, watching you face these trials alone? Every instinct screams to protect you, to destroy anyone who threatens you. The mate bond demands it." Elara sat up, cupping his face with both hands. "Then trust that I can protect myself. Trust what I'm becoming. I do trust you. It's them I don't trust." Kaelen's jaw clenched. "Marcus has been meeting with Serafina in secret. My own beta, the man I called brother, is conspiring against us. And there are others, council members, noble families, who would rather see you dead than accept change. Then we'll face them together. After I pass this trial." "When you pass this trial," he corrected fiercely. "Not if, when." He kissed her then, and the mate bond exploded between them like lightning. Elara felt his wolf rising to meet her own awakening power, two halves of a whole recognizing each other. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "There's something you should know," Kaelen said quietly. "I've been researching your family name. Thorn. It appears in the old records before the Purge Wars. The Thornbloods were one of the most powerful packs in the realm, known for their golden wolves and their ability to commune with nature itself." Elara's breath caught. "What happened to them?" "They were hunted to extinction by the Pureblood faction, who feared their power. Or so the histories claim." His thumb traced her cheekbone tenderly. "But what if some survived? What if they hid among humans, waiting for the right moment to return? You think I'm descended from them? I think you're exactly who you were always meant to be, and I think the forest will know its own." He stayed until just before dawn, holding her, as if he could shield her from the coming trial through will, alone. When he finally left, Elara felt the absence like a physical wound. The whispering woods loomed at the citadel's northern border, a wall of ancient trees whose canopy blocked out the sky. Even in daylight, shadows pooled beneath those boughs like spilled ink. As the sun set and the full moon rose, the forest seemed to come alive, branches swaying without wind, whispers echoing from no visible source. The council assembled at the forest's edge, their ceremonial robes snapping in the supernatural breeze that emanated from the trees. Pack members gathered in a loose semicircle, their eyes reflecting moonlight like scattered coins. Lady Serafina stood apart, dressed in hunting leathers that emphasized her predatory grace. Her smile was all teeth as Elara approached. "Ready for your midnight stroll, little human?" Serafina's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I do hope you don't get lost. The woods can be so unforgiving." The head elder raised his staff, commanding silence. "The trial of wisdom begins now. Elara of Oakhaven must find the heart of the forest before dawn breaks. Lady Serafina will accompany her to ensure the trial's integrity." His ancient eyes held a warning Elara couldn't quite decipher. "Remember, the forest judges all who enter. Let your intentions be pure." Elara stepped toward the tree line, and the whispers intensified, a susurrus of voices in that almost language from her dreams. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, the world shifted. The sounds of the assembled pack cut off as if severed by a blade. The moonlight took on a strange, silvery quality that seemed to emanate from the trees themselves. And the whispers resolved into something almost comprehensible. Not words, but feelings, impressions, ancient memories. "Welcome home, daughter of gold. We have waited so long." Serafina entered behind her, and the forest's mood changed instantly, the welcoming warmth replaced by cold suspicion. The she-wolf's confident stride faltered. "What is this?" Serafina hissed. "The trees. They're watching." "They remember," Elara said softly, understanding blooming in her chest. "They remember who belongs here and who comes with ill intent." Serafina's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Careful, human. Accidents happen so easily in these woods. A fall, a wild animal attack, a simple disappearance. Who could say what really occurred?" Before Elara could respond, shapes materialized from the shadows. 6 wolves, their eyes gleaming with predatory intelligence. Marcus led them, his beta power radiating like heat. "Lady Serafina," he said with mock formality. We thought you might need assistance ensuring the trial proceeds properly. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs, 7 against 1, deep in a forest where no one would witness her death. The trap had been sprung. Seraphina's smile turned triumphant. How thoughtful, Marcus. Yes, I believe we should make absolutely certain our human friend doesn't cheat. She began to circle Elara like a shark scenting blood. You've caused quite enough disruption. Tonight, it ends. The wolves closed in, and Elara reached for that golden spark within her. But something else happened. The forest itself responded to her fear, to her desperate need. The whispers became a roar. Trees groaned and shifted, their massive roots erupting from the earth to form a barrier between Elara and her attackers. Branches reached down like protective arms. The very air thickened with ancient magic that made the wolves yelp and stumble back. Run, daughter. Find your heart. We will hold them. Elara didn't question the gift. She ran, her body moving with supernatural speed through the transformed forest. Behind her she heard Seraphina's enraged shriek and the sounds of wolves trying to fight through the forest's defenses. She ran deeper into the whispering woods, following an instinct she couldn't name, trusting in the magic that sang in her blood. The trees parted before her, creating a path that glowed with soft golden light. And somewhere ahead she felt it, a pull like the mate bond but older, deeper, calling her home. The heart of the forest awaited, and with it, the truth of who she really was. The forest guided Elara deeper into its ancient heart, where trees grew so massive their trunks could house entire families, and their roots formed cathedral arches overhead. Bioluminescent moss painted everything in shades of ethereal green and gold, while flowers that bloomed only under moonlight released perfume that smelled of memory and magic. Time moved strangely here. Minutes stretched into hours or compressed into heartbeats. Elara ran until her lungs burned, yet felt no exhaustion, as if the forest itself sustained her. The golden path never wavered, leading her toward something that called to her very soul. Behind her, distant howls echoed through the trees. Seraphina and her hunters had broken through the forest's initial defenses, but the woods were vast and deliberately confusing, paths shifting to lead the hunters in circles, while Elara's route remained true. They cannot follow where we lead you, daughter. Only those of the bloodline can find the heart. The whispers had become almost comprehensible now, ancient voices that spoke directly to something awakening within her. Elara no longer questioned the impossibility of it all. She had moved beyond doubt into a space of pure instinct and recognition. The path opened into a clearing that stole her breath. At the center stood a tree unlike any other, a massive oak whose silver bark seemed to pulse within her light. Its branches reached toward the full moon as if in worship, and its roots dove deep into a pool of crystalline water that reflected not the sky above, but something else entirely. Images moved in those waters, memories perhaps, or visions of what had been and what might yet be. This was the heart of the forest. Elara approached slowly, reverence filling her chest. The closer she came, the stronger the pull became, until she stood at the water's edge and saw her own reflection staring back. But it wasn't quite her reflection. The woman in the water had eyes of molten gold, and an aura of power that made the air shimmer. "This is who you were always meant to be," a voice said from behind her. Elara spun to find a woman emerging from the tree itself, her form translucent and shimmering like moonlight on water. She wore ancient clothing, leather and fur adorned with symbols that predated written language. Her hair flowed like liquid gold, and her eyes were identical to the ones Elara saw in her own reflection. "Who are you?" Elara whispered. "I am Aurelia Thornblood, first Alpha of the Golden Eye Pack, and I am your ancestor." The spirit moved with fluid grace, circling the pool. "I have waited 2 centuries for one of my bloodline to return to this place. The forest has guarded my essence, keeping watch for the day when the Thornbloods would rise again. But my family, they were human. My parents, my grandparents, your great-great-grandmother was my granddaughter, the last of our line to carry the wolf openly. When the Pureblood faction began their purge, she made a terrible choice to save her children." Aurelia's expression filled with ancient sorrow. She bound their wolves, locked away their heritage with blood magic, and sent them into the human world. The binding was meant to last only 1 generation, but fear is a powerful thing. Each generation renewed the binding, choosing safety over power until the knowledge of what they were was lost entirely. Elara's mind reeled. Then why am I changing now? Because you formed a mate bond with an Alpha King, one of the most powerful catalysts in our world. His power called to yours, shattering the bindings that held your wolf captive. Aurelia reached out, her translucent hand hovering over Elara's heart. But the awakening is incomplete. You have accessed fragments of your heritage, but your true form remains locked away. That is why you struggle, why your power comes in unpredictable bursts. How do I complete it? You must choose. Aurelia gestured to the pool. The heart of the forest holds the accumulated power of our bloodline, every Thornblood who came before, their strength and wisdom preserved in this sacred place. If you drink from these waters, the binding will shatter completely. You will become what you were always meant to be, a golden wolf, an alpha in your own right, equal to any in the realm. Hope and fear warred in Elara's chest. What's the cost? Magic like this always has a price. Aurelia's smile was sad and proud. Wise child, yes, there is a cost. To fully embrace your wolf is to leave your human life behind forever. The girl who ground herbs in Oakhaven will cease to exist. You will be immortal, powerful, bound to the supernatural world with no possibility of return. Your human family, should any remain, will age and die while you endure. You will be other, always and forever. Elara thought of her quiet life, her simple dreams. They seemed impossibly distant now, belonging to someone else entirely, but she also thought of Kaelen, of the mate bond that sang between them, of Lyra's fierce loyalty and Theron's ancient wisdom, of the pack members who had begun to look at her with something other than contempt. And if I refuse, the partial awakening will fade. You will return to being human, and the mate bond will wither and die. Such bonds cannot survive between mortal and immortal. Kaelen will be forced to reject you formally, and you will return to the human world with no memory of any of this. The forest will ensure your mind is protected from the trauma. Aurelia's gaze was penetrating. You will be safe, ordinary, and utterly alone. The choice is yours, daughter of my blood. No one can make it for you. Before Elara could respond, a howl shattered the clearing's peace. Seraphina burst through the tree line. Her elegant form shifted into a massive silver wolf, eyes blazing with murderous intent. Marcus and 5 others flanked her, forming a deadly semicircle. Seraphina shifted back to human form, naked and unashamed in the moonlight. How convenient! The human found the heart, and now will ensure she never leaves to tell anyone. Her smile was vicious. The council will believe you simply got lost in the woods. Tragic, really. The forest protects this place, Elara said, backing toward the pool. You can't. The forest protects those of the bloodline, Marcus interrupted, his voice cold. But we don't need to touch you directly. We simply need to keep you here until dawn. Once you fail the trial, the council will have no choice but to order your execution. Either way, you die. The wolves began to circle, cutting off any escape route. Aurelia's spirit form flickered with agitation, but she was powerless to intervene. A ghost could only watch and guide, not fight. Choose, daughter. Aurelia's voice rang with urgency. Choose now, or lose the chance forever. Elara's eyes met Seraphina's across the clearing. She saw the hatred there, the fear of change, the desperate need to maintain a world that was already crumbling. And she understood that this moment was bigger than her own survival. It was about what kind of future the supernatural world would have, one where power was hoarded by the few, or one where it could be earned by the worthy, one where tradition strangled progress, or one where evolution was possible. She thought of Kaelen's faith in her, of Lyra's hope for change, of Theron's patient waiting for prophecy to unfold. Elara turned to the pool and knelt at its edge. The water's surface rippled, showing her that golden-eyed reflection once more. She cupped her hands and dipped them into the crystalline depths. No! Seraphina lunged forward, but the forest responded instantly, roots erupting to bind her legs, branches reaching down to hold her fast. The other wolves met the same fate, trapped by the ancient magic that guarded this sacred place. Elara raised the water to her lips and drank. Power exploded through her body like liquid lightning. Every cell ignited, every nerve sang with supernatural energy. The binding that had held her wolf captive for generations shattered like glass, and she felt her true self rising, glorious and terrible and utterly free. Her bones shifted, reformed. Golden fur erupted across her skin. Her senses expanded until she could hear the heartbeat of every living thing in the forest, smell the fear sweat of her enemies, taste the magic in the air. The transformation was agony and ecstasy combined, death and rebirth happening simultaneously. When it was complete, a golden wolf stood where Elara had knelt, larger than any normal wolf, with eyes that burned like captured sunlight, and an aura of power that made the very air shimmer. Aurelia's spirit form blazed with joy. "Welcome home, Alpha Elara Thornblood." The forest recognizes its daughter. The trees released Seraphina and her hunters, who stumbled back in shock and terror. The golden wolf before them radiated alpha power that rivaled Kaelen's own, something that should have been impossible. Seraphina shifted back to human form, her face pale. "What are you?" Elara shifted as well, the transformation now as natural as breathing. She stood naked in the moonlight, unashamed and magnificent, power rolling off her in waves. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of ancient authority. "I am what your ancestors tried to destroy. I am the bloodline you thought extinct. I am Alpha Elara Thornblood, and I have passed your trial." She stepped forward, and the hunters instinctively backed away. "Return to the citadel. Tell the council that the heart of the forest has been found, and the old bloodlines have returned." Marcus found his voice, though it shook. "The council will never accept this. You're an abomination. The council will accept what the forest has declared." Theron's voice rang through the clearing as the ancient elder emerged from the shadows, Lyra at his side. "I felt the moment of transformation. The old magic has spoken, and even the council must bow to powers greater than themselves." Lyra rushed forward with a cloak, wrapping it around Elara's shoulders. Her eyes shone with tears and triumph. "I knew it. I knew you were special." Seraphina's expression twisted with rage and desperation. "This changes nothing. The Pureblood faction will never—" "The Pureblood faction has already lost," Theron interrupted quietly. "They simply don't know it yet. The prophecy has been fulfilled. When human blood awakens wolf spirit, the old kingdoms shall tremble. Change has come, Lady Seraphina. You can adapt or you can be swept away by it." As dawn broke over the whispering woods, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Elara stood tall among the ancient trees. She had entered these woods as a human pretending to be strong enough. She emerged as an alpha in her own right, equal to any in the realm. The mate bond flared suddenly, and she felt Kaelen's presence at the forest's edge, his shock, his pride, his overwhelming love crashing through their connection. He had felt her transformation, and he was waiting. Elara turned to Aurelia's fading spirit form. "Thank you, grandmother." "No, child. Thank you for having the courage to become who you were always meant to be. Now go. Your mate awaits, and your true trials are only beginning." The spirit smiled one last time before dissolving into golden light that was absorbed by the great tree. As Elara walked out of the whispering woods with Theron and Lyra flanking her, Seraphina and Marcus trailing behind in defeated silence, she felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. She had passed 2 trials, but the hardest one still lay ahead. The trial of heart would test not her strength or wisdom, but her capacity for mercy, forgiveness, and love, and the entire pack would bear witness. The citadel erupted into chaos upon Elara's return. News of her transformation spread like wildfire through the pack, igniting fierce debates that threatened to tear the carefully maintained social order apart. Some hailed her as the fulfillment of ancient prophecy, while others denounced her as a threat to centuries of pure blood tradition. The council convened an emergency session, their chambers packed with noble families demanding answers. Elara stood before them once more, but this time she did not tremble. The golden wolf within her sat calm and confident, recognizing no authority above her own, except that which she chose to acknowledge. "This is unprecedented," the head elder declared, his ancient voice carrying across the assembly. "An alpha born from dormant bloodlines, awakened through mate bond and trial. The forest itself has declared her worthy, yet questions remain." Lord Aldrich, a pure-blood elder with silver streaking his dark hair, rose from his seat. "Questions? This is an abomination. She was human mere weeks ago. Now she claims alpha status. What of the natural order? What of bloodline purity?" "What of it?" Theron's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. "The Thornbloods were one of the founding packs, their lineage as pure as any in this chamber. More so than some, I would wager, if we examined genealogies closely enough." Uncomfortable silence followed this pointed observation. Lady Seraphina stood, her composure recovered, but her eyes still burning with barely contained fury. So regardless of her bloodline, she has not yet completed the trials. The trial of heart remains. Until she passes all three, she has no legitimate claim to stand as Lunar Queen beside Alpha King Kaelen. The head elder nodded slowly. Lady Seraphina speaks truth. The final trial must be completed. His gaze fixed on Elara with unsettling intensity. The trial of heart is unlike the others. It does not test strength or wisdom, but the very essence of who you are. Your capacity for mercy, forgiveness, and love, even toward those who have wronged you. A cold knot formed in Elara's stomach. She understood immediately what they intended. The trial is this, the head elder continued. You must sit in judgment of those who conspired against you. Lady Seraphina, Beta Marcus, and the 5 wolves who entered the Whispering Woods with intent to harm you. As an alpha, you have the right to demand justice, even execution for such treachery. But as a potential Lunar Queen, you must demonstrate the wisdom to rule with both strength and compassion. Marcus stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral, but Elara could smell his fear beneath the facade. I accept the judgment of Alpha Elara Thornblood. One by one, the other conspirators came forward, kneeling before her in ritual submission. Seraphina came last, her pride warring with survival instinct. When she finally knelt, the gesture was stiff and resentful. The head elder's voice rang out. Alpha Elara, what is your judgment? Every eye in the chamber fixed upon her. This was the true test. Not of her power, but of her character. The easy path would be vengeance, to eliminate those who had tried to kill her. It would be justified, even expected. But Elara thought of Theron's words in the library. The forest does not respond to strength or dominance. It responds to truth. She stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. I have walked in darkness and emerged into light. I have been powerless and found strength. I have been alone and discovered family. Her gaze swept across the kneeling figures. These wolves acted out of fear. Fear of change, fear of losing power, fear of a future they could not control. I understand fear. I have lived with it every day since entering this world. Seraphina's head snapped up, surprise flickering across her face. But fear is not an excuse for cruelty, and tradition is not justification for injustice. Elara's voice hardened. You sought my death, not in honorable combat, but through deception and ambush. You violated the sanctity of the trials and betrayed the trust of your Alpha King. Marcus flinched, genuine shame crossing his features. However, Elara continued, I am not here to rule through terror or to perpetuate cycles of violence. If I am to be Lunar Queen, I must build a future where strength and compassion coexist, where change is possible without bloodshed. She moved to stand before Marcus first. You were Kaelen's brother, in all but blood. Your betrayal cut him deeper than any wound, but I have seen your service record, heard stories of your loyalty before ambition poisoned your judgment. Therefore, my judgment is this. You are stripped of your beta rank and exiled from the Citadel for 1 year. You will serve in the border territories, protecting the pack from external threats. If you prove your loyalty through action rather than words, you may petition for reinstatement. Marcus's eyes widened with shock and something that might have been gratitude. Thank you, Alpha. I will not fail again. Elara moved to the 5 hunters. You followed orders from those you believed held authority over you. Misguided loyalty is still loyalty. You will serve 6 months in the Citadel Guard under Theron's direct supervision, learning what it truly means to serve the pack rather than individual ambition. The 5 wolves bowed their heads in acceptance, relief evident in their postures. Finally, Elara stood before Seraphina. The she-wolf met her gaze with defiant pride, expecting no mercy. You are the most complicated, Elara said quietly. Your actions were driven by more than ambition. They were driven by genuine pain. You were promised a future that was stolen away by forces beyond your control. I understand that loss. Seraphina's mask cracked slightly, vulnerability showing through. But your pain does not excuse attempted murder, and your noble blood does not place you above justice. Elara's voice carried alpha command that made even the council members straighten. You are stripped of your title as lady and your position in the noble houses. You will serve as Lyra's assistant in the healing wards for 1 year, learning to use your strength to build rather than destroy. At the end of that year, if you have demonstrated genuine change, you may petition to have your title restored. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. To place a former noble as assistant to an Omega was a profound humiliation, yet it was not execution, not exile, not the crushing punishment many had expected. Serafina stared at Elara with an expression too complex to name. "Why?" she whispered. "Why show me mercy when I showed you none?" "Because someone must break the cycle," Elara replied simply. "Because I refuse to become the thing I fought against, and because I believe people can change if given the chance and the proper motivation." The head elder rose slowly, and for the first time since Elara had met him, something like approval showed in his ancient eyes. "The trial of heart is past. Alpha Elara Thornblood has demonstrated wisdom beyond her years and compassion befitting a true Lunar Queen." The chamber fell silent as the weight of the moment settled over everyone present. Theron stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of centuries. "3 trials completed. 3 times she has proven herself worthy, through strength, through wisdom, through heart. The old laws are clear. She has earned her place." Lord Aldrich stood, his expression troubled but resigned. "The laws are indeed clear. Though it pains me to admit it, she has fulfilled every requirement." He turned to Elara with grudging respect. "You have my support, Alpha Thornblood. May you rule with the same wisdom you have shown today." One by one, the council members rose and bowed, some enthusiastically, others reluctantly, but all acknowledging her victory. The noble families followed suit, the gesture rippling through the chamber like a wave. Only then did Kaelen enter, having waited outside as tradition demanded. He moved through the crowd with predatory grace, his eyes locked on Elara with an intensity that made the mate bond sing. When he reached her, he knelt, the Alpha King kneeling before his equal. "Alpha Elara Thornblood," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You have passed every trial, overcome every obstacle, and proven yourself worthy 1,000 times over. Will you accept your place as Lunar Queen? Will you stand beside me as equal partner, as mate, as the other half of my soul?" Tears streamed down Elara's face as she pulled him to his feet. "I will. Today, tomorrow, and for all the days our immortal lives grant us." Their kiss was witnessed by the entire assembly, and the mate bond exploded between them with such force that every wolf in the chamber felt the echo of it, a connection so powerful it seemed to shake the very foundations of the citadel. When they finally broke apart, Kaelen turned to address the council. "Let it be known throughout the realm. The Thorn bloodline has returned, and a new era begins. Those who embrace change will be welcomed. Those who cling to the old ways of fear and exclusion will find no place in our court." The head elder struck his staff against the stone floor 3 times. "So witnessed, so recorded, so shall it be. All hail, Lunar Queen Elara Thornblood. All hail," the chamber echoed, voices blending into a thunderous chorus. That night, as the full moon reached its zenith, Elara stood on the citadel's highest balcony, with Kaelen at her side. Below, the pack had gathered for an impromptu celebration, wolves running through the courtyards in joyous abandon, howls of celebration echoing off the ancient stones. "Do you regret it?" Kaelen asked softly. "Giving up your human life, your mortality, your chance at a simple existence?" Elara leaned into his warmth, feeling the mate bond pulse between them like a second heartbeat. "I regret nothing. That girl in Oakhaven was living half a life, never knowing what she was capable of. Now I'm whole. The challenges aren't over," he warned. "The pureblood faction may have accepted you today, but resentment runs deep. There will be those who test you, who push boundaries, who wait for you to fail. Let them try." Elara's eyes flashed gold in the moonlight. "I didn't survive 3 trials just to crumble at the first sign of political maneuvering. Besides, I have you, Theron, Lyra, and an entire forest that apparently considers me family. I'd say my odds are pretty good." Kaelen laughed, the sound rich and warm. "My fierce mate, my golden wolf, my equal in all things." Below, Lyra caught Elara's eye and waved enthusiastically, her joy evident even from this distance. Beside her, surprisingly, stood Serafina, not celebrating, but not fleeing either, watching with an expression that might someday become acceptance. Theron appeared at the balcony entrance, his ancient face creased with satisfaction. "The prophecy is fulfilled, the old bloodlines restored, and the realm has a Lunar Queen worthy of the title. I can finally rest easy after 3 centuries of waiting." "Don't you dare rest," Elara said with mock severity. I'm going to need your counsel for at least another 3 centuries. As my queen commands. Theron bowed with genuine affection before departing. Alone again, Elara and Kaelen stood in comfortable silence, watching their pack celebrate below. The future stretched before them, uncertain, challenging, but filled with possibility. I love you, Kaelen murmured against her hair. My lunar queen, my impossible miracle. I love you too, Elara replied. My Alpha King, my catalyst, my home. As they kissed beneath the full moon, the whispering woods in the distance seemed to glow with golden light. Aurelia's blessing, perhaps, or simply the forest's joy at having its daughter finally home. The girl from Oakhaven was gone, transformed into something greater, and Alpha Elara Thornblood, lunar queen of the Lycanthian Dominion, was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would build a future where power was earned rather than inherited, where change was embraced rather than feared, and where love could transcend every boundary. The old kingdoms had indeed trembled, and from their shaking, something beautiful was born. Thank you for joining Elara on her incredible journey from humble human to powerful lunar queen. If you enjoyed this tale of transformation, love, and the courage to embrace your true self, please subscribe to hear more stories of supernatural romance and epic adventure. What did you think of Elara's trials? Which moment resonated most with you? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world right now, let me know where you're tuning in from. Share this story with anyone who loves paranormal romance, strong heroines and tales of destiny fulfilled against impossible odds. Until next time, may you have the courage to embrace your own transformation, whatever form it takes.